Right, what we'll do now, I've decided, is this. Being as, like, there's almost no point doing an actual preview for IM Sydney because it is in a game that essentially we've never played an official game of Counter-Strike in, CS2. To me, it would be almost pointless because you'd have, essentially, it's a complete shot in the dark. Like, how am I supposed to predict if, like, Bit is good in CS2 or worse? Like, I can't, I don't even have any metrics or sort of, like, reference points to go from. So to me, I thought a way more interesting thing we could do with the rest of the episode is even though normally I try to stick to the official news, obviously now it's become like a little mini rostermania again, hasn't it? There's all these like swirling rumours about loads of teams, and some of them are gradually coming true. Some of them clearly are happening, and I will say, even though I'll have some content on this soon, some of them are made up. Like, as usual, some people have gone too far and done some really sexy rumours that aren't really happening. But even so, essentially, like, the movement angle of the idea that there's a lot going on is true as far as I can tell. There are actually a whole bunch of big name, like, pretty swift. If you go and take the top 20 orgs, a whole bunch are changing players, and there are some big name orgs. Actually, some of them seem like doing enormous pivots, and some of them have happened. So I thought what we could do is we can talk about a couple that have happened, and then we'll just do some fun speculation. So obviously one that has happened, we just don't know yet. The speculation is going to be on the second part of this is Heroic has done one of the biggest moves I've ever seen in Counter-Strike, mate, which is, I have to say this right now, if people don't know, Cadian is leaving Heroic, and no one knows yet where he's going. No one even knows why. They've just said that thing of sort of like, we have different visions of that. We can already, there's plenty we can speculate about that. What does that mean? You know, they have a different vision, and so he's out and he's going. And then the rumor was that like Shush is going to be the IGL instead of him. That's one rumor. But then again, it depends who joins instead. Like, if people don't know, because another rumor is that Glaive joins Nip, some people thought this meant Glaive was joining Heroic because obviously there's a spot for an IGL, right? So no one knows. And also, I think people are forgetting this detail, mate. This is the part that kills me. Is because he was IGL and AWP. Well, remember, that's why there's a rumor out. Now does Stown become the AWP? Like, this is actually, like I say, there's two angles to this, Maniac. One is the angle that, like, I'll just tease this. I want to get your take, and then I'll bounce off that. One is, like, if you asked me to predict a move, this would be almost bottom of my list, mate, because normally orgs are incredibly loyal to this type of a player specifically. Like, he is the face of the org, plus the IGL, plus the AWP. Like, and by the way, I'll just say it right now. 99% of people in the world who have a Heroic jersey have it because of Cadian. Not, by the way, it's Down, who's a better player, or, you know, like Tessus. It's because of Cadian. Like, Cadian is Heroic to me. That's the craziest part. So, one, I could never have conceived this would happen, either side, by the way. And then the other angle to me is, like I say, because of all the roles he was doing, it's not as simple as just replacing with player X. Like, you're going to have to essentially, like, gamble like 2 or 3 different players' future on this move. Like this, I think this has enormous implications. So give me your first thoughts. Like, first of all, was this out of left field for you? Was there any rumors behind the scenes or some sort of vibe? There was unhappiness in the team? What was your sense?
So completely unexpected to see Cadian take the door. I think this whole Heroic topic is like Russian dolls.
Yes.
Like, you can remove them and there's always more to talk about. There's always more topics to come through. The first thing I would say is that I was surprised because this move revealed to me how shattered they were internally with a couple of failures they've had.
Yes.
And this is something I didn't expect. Like, I imagined that frustration was building up because they hadn't exactly capitalized on like the strong positions they had and the strong momentums they had. They didn't really capitalize on it. Famously, there are a bunch of games they lose at very high prestige events that they shouldn't have lost, but they were still like a top team. We would still have put them in the 3 to 4 best teams in the world. I think with my eyes closed, I would have put them here. So I probably underestimated how frustrated they were. And this is a crazy example of how if a team, or let me rephrase that, if the seed of doubt starts to root in a team, it will eventually kill you like a disease. And I think this is what's happened in Heroic. Like, I think they started doubting, and by they, I mean the players, and I don't know how many of them, and I don't know to what extent. They started to believe that they wouldn't win the way they were playing Counter-Strike. And that is so insane to think about because, as you mentioned, Cadian, not only leader, sniper, face of the org, but it felt also was the core of the Counter-Strike they were playing. Like, the philosophy of Counter-Strike they were playing, it felt like it was him, and he was fully in charge. And so they came to the conclusion that this Counter-Strike wouldn't make them win, which is, it's crazy. It's a crazy take to me to imagine. And it's like, the only way I can imagine this happening would be if Cadian had visions on changes that would need to be done in Heroic. And then
which is what they implied.
Collectively, players fought against that, and
Yes.
it came to a Mexican standoff where it's just, listen, like,
I mean,
that's
I'll
it.
just say this, Maniac, as someone who I would consider myself an expert, so reading between the lines on statements and press, what they have said about that thing of having a different vision, essentially what you're saying is the implication to me as an outsider is he wanted certain players in or out, and then, like you say, either the players or the org disagreed, and so it's him who has to be out. That sounds to me like what the plot, because essentially it's implausible to me that they just specifically didn't want Cadian and kicked him. You know, like
No.
that, on its face, that doesn't make sense, does it?
And that is relatively crazy, because it would mean if you are heroic and the final choice is to remove Cadian, it almost implies that there was like a coalition that was against whatever changes he wanted to put through. And that's kind of crazy, because again, it felt like he was such a captain. So maybe there was more than meets the eye on like how the group was behaving behind closed doors after these losses and in the weeks leading up to the last few events. There must have been something going on here. If the final conclusion is, well, you know what, screw this guy, screw you, captain, we're going to go a whole different way. So that, to me, that's like the first topic. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then we can obviously talk about the tactical implications of that, because that is also endless. Like, not only do you have to find a new leader, you have to find a new opper. So do you bring actually someone's like a hobby opper, or do you actually bring a natural? Neither Shush or Stone would be naturals in the roles that they would be taking. Like, we're talking about a top team of Counter-Strike. How crazy is that?
That's the part I find really alarming about the whole move, actually. Like, I can sum it up like this. This is, like, I think this might be the largest single impact move any team could ever do. And by the way, when I say that, I'm including, think about teams that have, like, you know, fucking Nico's left a team and Simple's left a team, like Carrigan, like, the best players ever have left these teams. The reason why I think this is the biggest impact move is, like I say, look at all the roles, and then, like you say, he was the style of player they had. As far as, I mean, the joke is, even though he was mega as an IGL, I did often used to think he does almost put too much on himself. Like, essentially, the scenario for me was like, what does happen when Cadian's dead and he can't talk? Like, you know, how does someone else take over and call in the round? Like, it seemed like a lot of it was just on his shoulders. But that does mean that essentially you're not only replacing your in-game leader, you're not only replacing your AWPer, you're going to have to find someone who, let's be real, is going to have a different style of play. Like, you're not going, this is the other thing. We're acting like if they bring in like Glaive, he can like call and they can be, they're not going to be the same heroic. Like, even if it's the same 4 players plus someone new, it's going to be a radically different team. And I have to say, this is why it's alarming to me, dude. This is why, at least the way it was messaged makes it sound like it's not Cadian's choice, right? It doesn't sound like he said, I want to leave, and then he just left, right? It was all messaged as if, like, maybe he's not even that happy about it, and he's just, you know, it's just come to this breaking point, and they've both had to part with. The reason I bring that up is because that's the other reason why if I'm the heroic org, I'm never doing this move, mate. Because if I lose that guy's calling style, look at my players. Like, I'm just going to say this right now. I like all those players in terms of what they brought to this heroic lineup. But if you just put those players individually, if we do it the Diaspora Maniac and I send Yabi to this team and I send... Do they really get in the HLTV top 20? Maybe one does, you know what I mean? Maybe like Stown does on a team. Maybe Yabi on the right team. Some of them just become nobodies. They go back to being players playing on like the 20th best team in the world or the 15th best team, and they just become a normal player. Remember, a lot of these players are players who are like a 1.04 rating or something. Like, they're not the superstars of the world. So I have to say, I actually think the gamble on everyone's part is enormous for this, mate. Like, there's a world where this goes really badly and they become like the 11th best team. You know,
I do fear when you talk about Diaspora, I feel like it might be happening. Like, this might just be the end point of heroic. Obviously, I'm talking out of my ass here. I have no source.
No, we're just speculating.
We're just speculating. But there is a world in which this is what happens if they cannot put together like a strong lineup that makes sense. That's
why not? Yeah.
The only place where I disagree is that I do think Shush has an incredible value as an anchor, knowing that it is one of the most, let's just say...
Yeah, but you're going to be on the right team, though, if you know what I mean.
Unrewarding role out there. But if you're a team that's struggling to find like your anchor who is more skilled than the average, who doesn't require any maintenance, doesn't require any freedom, I do think that for what he was given, he was providing to them a whole lot.
I know what you mean. I mean, in this sense, though, Maniac. If he joins OG tomorrow, he's irrelevant. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how awesome a job he does as an anchor on OG. He won't win the tournament, will he? You know what I mean?
If I'm a top team and Heroic
fair enough. Okay.
I would consider. I would be like, hold on a second. Like, how is my anchor doing?
Yeah.
She's out there. And then you have Stone, of course. Like, Stone, very versatile player. Potential to be superstar. I don't think ever really achieved that, but potential to be superstar or at least star player. So yeah, these two would be definitely...
What do you think about that then? The rumour, I mean, this is just a pure rumour. We don't know this one. What do you think about the rumour that he becomes the AWPer? Because obviously he has done the AWPer before. People have seen he's done like secondary AWPer on some maps, but like, that's quite shocking to me if that's a real move.
Well, listen, I could be wrong, but history has provided so many examples of people who tried at it, burned their wings at it. It's like it's almost Icarus at that point. And it's happened with secondary snipers becoming snipers, and it's happened to secondary caller become caller. This is like one of the most dangerous slippery slope of Counter-Strike, I feel like. I know he was very decent as a secondary, and there were a few positions where he would be an actual threat, but the play style is so different when you actually have to play the AWP every single time you can in different positions. This is a whole new game. So I'm not really discussing whether or not he's got the mechanical ability to do so. It would appear he's got it. He's proven it. But mate, you're about to play a different Counter-Strike, and all of the positions that you thought you were comfortable in, you might play them 30 to 40% of your rounds. That's it. The rest of the time, you're going to be where your team needs you. So that in itself, I have huge reservation on whether Stone can maintain the input that he's got. And the other obvious topic of conversation for me is, and I'm going to preface that by saying I don't know him personally, but Shush doesn't strike me as the captain type.
I mean,
you feel like
the joke is
you would rally the troops.
Obviously, it's going to sound like I'm doing it as a pun, but he actually, for real, he is a quiet player as far as I can tell. He actually is one of the more like chilled, laid back sort of figures. So I'm shocked at the idea. Like, here's the thing: this is an example, Maniac, of where like I divide up roles. Like, I could believe that, for example, he might actually have like a tactical mind for the game. Maybe he's like a cerebral thinker. But I agree with you. The difference is not only are we asking you to be the actual leader of the team, but you're also replacing, by the way, one of the most charismatic leaders probably ever in Counter-Strike. Like, you're also filling some pretty big shoes there, mate.
Oh, wait, so I'm going to open like a theoretical box for half a second. If only maybe the very vocal warrior style of Cadian maybe just wasn't sitting right for a couple of players. There is a world in which they would benefit from like a calmer, like more rational, down-to-earth type people, and maybe they would just feel more comfortable if Shush was just like very quiet. If you remember NIP famously at the time, they were not screamers at all. Like, they were very calm people. Like, Xist as an IGL, you could probably not hear him if you were standing behind them when they were playing. So there is a world in which teams or players might have a preference for that style. But I'm just gonna say, if your issue was crumbling under pressure in very tight moments, then I am yet to believe that Shush will be the guy that will guide you through these very hard games where everyone is tested to the max and then your IGL has to step up and come in with the calls at 14-14. Maybe he can. I have no reason to believe that he cannot. I mean, I have no data. But that is, to me, that's like a huge gamble. Personally, I'm just going to put it out there. Personally, if I was the puppeteer of the whole Counter-Strike, I would just try and shuffle the cards in Danish Counter-Strike, and I'm sure you could have such mega...
You'd get a better 5, wouldn't you? Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, you could have such a mega...
This actually segues into what I was going to bring up, which is the other reason why, I'll just say it flat out. Bear in mind, I haven't seen what's going to happen to the Heroic team. I actually think, in my opinion, the only person who benefits from this is potentially Cadian. Like, maybe Cadian does go to a team and get even bigger success or show that it was him all along. I actually think Heroic is fucked up. If they were the ones who made this choice, Maniac, whether it's the players, whether it was not, I think they've actually made a bad choice, because to me, it's funny because I'm so critical of him as a primary AWPer, as a guy who I think sometimes does make himself the main character and all that jazz. But I'll tell you what, he was a fucking really good IGL though. I thought the way he called the game was very impressive, and especially, by the way, in light of the specific pieces he had. Because these aren't pieces like we're talking about. Like, these aren't like Device and Zipnix and these aren't like established pieces that I already know are world class. Like, they became world class playing for Cadian. I'll have to find out now without Cadian, how world class are they? Like, let's see. I'll be very interested to find out. So first of all, I think Cadian was too good. And then also, the other part about this move that I hate goes like this. Notice how the other connected rumours are that his roles just go to established players already in the lineup. That's really disturbing to me, Maniac, because if the real reason he leaves goes like this, you know, maybe I'll give you a random this is pure speculation / throwing it out there. Let's imagine he himself was like, right, I agree that this lineup's not working and we need to make a change. So I'll pick a random player. So Tesses, I think he needs to be kicked, and I wouldn't recruit. Insert whoever you want. Could be config. Make a ridiculous one if you want. Just pick up a config. Could be someone just from the tier 2 scene. Maybe he knows some Danish player. Whoever it is that he wants. Right? And let's say either the org or the rest of the players. Maybe like you're saying. Maybe the rest of the players. Maybe they even don't vibe with this person. Like, maybe they're like, no, we don't want that. And in fact, if there has to be a move, it's you who has to go. Right? Here's my problem. I'm okay if then the next sentence goes. But it's okay though, because we've got a deal and Blame F and Device are coming. Like, oh right, cool, right. So Blame F takes over as IGL. Device has got the hey, that now, look, it's still a very uncertain roster, but hey, at least there's some, there's some positives there. Like, I could see how this is going to work. If the real move is someone, and this is really disturbing because nobody has been rumored to join this team yet. Nobody. If it's just a player joins instead of Cadian, and now shushes the IGL and stowns the AWPer, that just sounds bad. That just actually sounds like you're going to be a worse team. That sounds like, when I consider you weren't like a crazy high firepower team anyway. And let's just throw this in as well. You might actually be tanking your best rated player, Stown's game, by doing this. That sounds like you're just going to become like the 13th best team in Counter-Strike. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be in the finals. You're going to win these tournaments. Like, so to me, that's why I say it's a terrible move, because even if you disagree, it's like, essentially, here's the analogy, Maniac. You're fucking hitting on on fucking 18 in blackjack or something. Like, bro, you had 18. Unless you know there's like a 2 coming out. Why are we doing this? Like, we're on 18. Like, just stay, hold. It's real. We can still win. This could still win. That's the part that kills me as well, by the way. I agree the results were shit the last month and a half or so, but I still wouldn't completely throw the towel in. Like, that lineup, I think they earned, like, a few more months. In fact, this is the other thing I think's insane. I'll just throw this out there as the last point. I'll pass back to you. The other thing that's crazy about me is this. Because we're just transitioning to CS2, isn't this the ultimate time to sort of get back on your feet and give everyone a break and go, the results what? Like I was saying, no one's even going to really count IEM Sydney. It's sort of a chance to relieve some of the pressure. Like, let's figure out the issues. Because I actually think, bear in mind, he's gone now, dude. This is tragic. What a fucking sad ending to that roster of Heroic. I mean, if you ever go back on a lot of those Hot Take Point Made episodes, I had a lot of predictions like Cadian will never win a major in Heroic, etc. But I didn't mean as in he'll be gone in a bloody year. I hoped he'd get like 5 years to try it. I hope this lineup would stay together like at least like the 3 or 4 man core for like the Astralis one did, keep it going for like 5 years. In fact, that's the other thing that's tragic about this move, Maniac. This core, you like at a minimum, in my opinion, these are the 3 you keep: Cadian, Stown, and Shush. If you keep those 3 together, like Device to Precipnix, you could play together for 10 years, mate. You could run the table on Counter-Strike. Like, look, change the others if you need to. Get a guy from here and a guy. But those people, the idea they only play together like 3 years or something of lands, and then it's over. That's fucking brutal. Like, what a shit narrative ending that is.
I know, and this is why I revert back to how I started this topic. Is like, this tells me a lot about the magnitude of the frustration that they probably felt because of these losses. And that is crazy, because I feel like from an objective standpoint, or let's just say an external standpoint, there was no cause for such a deep overhaul. Like, sure, there were like fine-tuning needed, and it looked like mostly mental, of course, but they were still like a very strong team. They just had breaking points. Like, they had breaking points in 2 to 3 events when they lost to teams they shouldn't have lost to. But they were still a very, very well-rounded team with a defined identity and strong players. But it's like, it's crazy. It feels like that doubt just turned into a monster that was in a closet and couldn't be handled. And I think it went beyond what was actually the situation. I think they got in their own heads. Like, I think it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. So, you know what? It reeks of, I'm struggling to find the right words, but this is the equivalent of being in a relationship with someone for a long time. And at some point, instead of working on it, you just say, fuck this shit, I'm out. You take your suitcase and you leave. And you obviously had a very strong basis. You could have worked through your issues, whatever, talk about it. No, you just say, fuck it, I'm out. Yes. I'm not going to deal with this. This is to the point of no return. I truly do not feel like they were at the point of no return. I thought there were still a lot of true and good in this team. And this is why I was much more of the advice of, maybe you need to change one player. Maybe, like, just
not Cadian, though, I'm sure. I'm sure you're kicking someone else, right? Not Cadian.
Not Cadian. You just need to change one player.
Exactly.
And then you create like a slightly different dynamic in the team. Maybe you bring in someone with a bit more experience just to help you get over like these few games where you obviously are not playing your level of Counter-Strike. That is so obvious to everyone that's watching the team. So I think this is very drastic to just say, screw this, we're going to destroy our whole structure and we're going to bring back something up. Because I agree with you. Well, you say top 30, it might be a bit harsher, but I would say like they're not making past the top 10. Not if Stone is actually supposed to be the main op and Shurs is supposed to be the main IGL, which again, we're speculating. If this is the case, I don't think they break through the top 10. I think they become one of these like gatekeepers who are not going to make it to quarterfinals. It's just going to be a team that's annoying to play against, and that's it. And that is very tragic considering like the space they were holding in Counter-Strike. And like, I also like to have a team that played a slightly different Counter-Strike, a bit more gambly, pacey. That was nice. Yes. So yeah, we'll surely learn more about it and like the intrications of what happened from the within and all. But this is relatively sad that it went down this way. And Funnily enough, you mentioned Blameth and Device. Hell yeah, I would make something up in here.
It would be a fun move. By the way, when you were saying make like essentially release all the Danish talent and make a 5-man lineup, that's the problem. Is right now those are the players you'd start the lineup with. You'd take some heroic players, you'd take them, and you'd try and make a super team essentially, wouldn't you? Like it's just the obvious move right now if you want Denmark to win.
I mean, if you're Astralis, I don't know where the finances are at, and I don't know the state of the contract. So again, pure speculation. But if I'm Astralis, I have to consider the whole situation. Like if you're Astralis right now, Blameth and Device are obviously key pieces. You're never going to let them go, or you're going to make mega money on them.
Yes,
that's fair. You could maybe tentatively argue that Buzz had an uptick, and maybe he's going in the right direction. I would hear the argument. Not that I fully share it, but I would hear the argument that he's getting better and he could be better. But honestly, when it comes to Borup and Stair, if I'm in charge, that's the moment. I strike. I just strike on it. I try to make something different right there. Stair has relatively star position roles for my money. He's got freedom. He's got movement. He's got lurks here and there. Borup is a 1-2-1 to shush. I don't need to paint the picture for you. It's clear as it is.
Oh, that'll be an easy one.
There's something to be done here. Holy hell, there would be something to be done. But this is all, of course, in a world of unicorns and theories. Like,
no, I'm with you. If they have the money, now would be the time for Astralis to pounce. Actually, like this is essentially where you could not only kill heroic, but get, like as you say, the upgrades. Like,
and you get a mega team.
Yes.
Think for a second. Device, Blameth, then Shush, Stone, and then if you think Buzz still deserves a shot, then it's up to you. I'm not going to argue you down because I don't have enough to say no. He's not cut for it. But like this 5 would already be holy hell. Like you'd have two defensive players who play the roles that aren't like people don't really want to play anywho, and then you'd have. I mean, it would just mean that Stone would have to be a bit more aggressive than he likes to. I think that's the only problem because Blameth is not going to change that. Blameth is pretty much made of whatever he's made of now. That's it. So there would be a couple of changes to be made or thoughts in the structure, but still, holy shit, like that would work on paper.
By the way, the real sad thing is, obviously, the sexy move to discuss is Cadian. Where does he go? The problem with that is, right now, there is zero possible even way to guess. It's like trying to do the CS2 prediction thing. Because, like, for example, I'll give you an obvious thing that you could speculate about is we all know there's this whole thing with Zonic and the Falcons roster, and they're going to have God knows how much money to buy everyone, right? Look, I could see a world where if you're Cadian, remember it is Zonic, like that's the sort of person you might want to play for. Hey, I'll tell you what, if I've been in heroic and I've been doing all these like budget sort of scouting moves to get next players, it'd be nice to have a few million and just go and sign Nico or something like that, you know, just get the player. I could see that being appealing because the problem I have is if it's not that movement, if he's not going to the Falcons, because he had such a unique skill set where, at least as far as we know, he wants to be the AWPer as well as the IGL. I can't even conceive of what team it is, mate. Like, is he really joining Astralis? Because here's the problem with that one, the other way around, Maniac. Is like, I thought it was bad enough that they signed Hunden after all the stupid stuff they said publicly. How are you going to sign Cadian after all the things that have gone down? Look, don't get me wrong. I love WWE. I'd do it. I think it's worth tanking it because it'd be an amazing move, right? But I tell you what, he is essentially public enemy number one to every Astralis fan, like, and the org to some degree. Like, you sort of low-key hate him. Remember, he was the guy only 2 years ago was like, this match is for all the marbles. Like, that's who you're signing. And then the other one is, if it's not that, then who even is there, dude? Like, what, does he go to NIP? You know what I mean? Like, where is there even an opening at the inn, Maniac, for an IGL and AWP simultaneously? Like, it's hard to find a spot, right?
That's the key. You got it right there. If his intention is set in stone that he will be the primary AWP and leader, then it's a very short list of teams that could potentially benefit from him, which also wouldn't mean an incredible downgrade for him. Like, off the top of my head, we discussed that at Blast as well. Yeah, Liquid could be a team that would benefit from both having an IGL
that's not a bad
and an AWPer, you could argue. But beyond that, I don't even know where he could actually go and change. So if you're Cadian, right now might be a good moment to rethink what is it that you want to accomplish in the next few years and where you want to go. I mean, players that have dynasty type career also have made changes where you think of Apex, holy hell, went from an entry fragger to be an IGL. So you can transition if you're good enough and if you have the will. And he's not that old. He's like, 28? So he's got like definitely years ahead of him. Maybe now would be the time to say, hey, actually, I might just become a rifle and I'll have a secondary. I can be a secondary snipers depending on the setup that we do. I'm very capable with it. So don't worry. Let's just say whatever. Don't worry, Monesi. Don't worry, Zaiwu. Don't worry, whoever the hell he's playing with. I'll be the secondary. When it's needed, I'll bring it up. You be the sniper and I'll do me. If he does that, then I think the possibilities are much wider than it is right now. But it's obviously up to him. I do think that he has to take that into account. I think he has to take into account what possibilities are for him depending on the roles that he chooses in the future. But yeah, pure speculation. The whole Falcons, I'm just going to be real. I don't know what's going to happen there. But it is, to me, as a fan of Counter-Strike, the least exciting idea to just have this whatever mixed match of players coming from a million different directions in the hope that something is happening. I usually don't buy into that unless proof of concept is provided really quickly. I think there are so many ways this can go wrong. I would rather not Team C go down that road.
Yeah, one thing I'll just say is this. I actually do think, by the way, on paper, I don't know if Cadian agrees, but I actually think the Liquid move could be very exciting. Like, if you just think off the top of your head, imagine a world where Cadian is the... Because, by the way, like you say, he could IGL and open that team. Imagine a world where he comes in. So already, by the way, both those levels, he's more than good enough for Liquid. He's better than OC. He's a better IGL than Yekindar at the moment. Imagine a world where they have Cadian and then they still have Naf, Patsy and Yekindar. Mate, put whoever you want in as the fifth. We're already cooking with gas on this one. Like, there's a fucking roster right there. Like, those are some really good pieces. Like, think about if Yekindar doesn't have to be IGL. Naf's obviously already bona fide. Patsy's a solid player. And then I think that could actually be a fucking really good roster. The problem with that one goes like this, Maniac. I'm actually going to do a video on this soon. If you look at the last few years of Team Liquid, aside from the Yekindar move, which, by the way, part of that is because there's not that many orgs he can even go to because of the whole fucking thing where he's on VP. Aside from the Yekindar move, they're a bit like Heroic. They don't tend to make really big gamble sexy moves. They've either done, you sign the old ass washed guy like Fallen Sharks, or you try and get like the up and coming person and scout them, you know. So the problem is I don't really know that I believe Team Liquid will get the deal done or that they have the same appetite we do for it. But I think on paper it's a very interesting move. I would like to roll the dice on that one.
It would be the only problem that I have, and I'm kind of diverging into a different topic here, but I do feel like the overlap between Patsy and Yekindar was only manageable if Yekindar was going to be an IGL and change a few of his positions. I feel like if you revert to Yekindar, let's say VP Yekindar, and you give him all the positions he had then, and you kind of let him off the leash and you let him be the player that he wants to be, I feel like there might be a bit too strong of an overlap. And if I was in charge of that project, I would probably discuss with Patsy like his ability to potentially
see if he can do something else,
up a little bit, and like reel it in. Yeah, I think you need to do that. But if he can do that, which I think as a player, he's an interesting player. I have no quarrel with him. But if he can do that, then I would definitely keep him. And yeah, Naf in itself, super valuable. Yeah, Cadian, Yekindar, Patsy, you just need a fifth. And
look at the skill we're even working with. There's some pretty fucking good players there, yeah.
There would be something to be done. But again, you would have to admit that for Cadian, it would be a downgrade. From being in Heroic from 3 to 4, it would be a downgrade.
That's why the saddest thing to bring it all the way back, like I said at the beginning, is it's only maybe Cadian, I think, gets a positive out of this actual result. I actually think for everyone, every single person, I think it's going to be worse. Everyone. Like, I think the org doesn't get it. I think, by the way, the saddest one of all, if I had to predict, even though I actually don't know on this, because I'm actually not sure if this was like a dispute between players or the org or who it was. But I'll tell you right now, if it was the players, I think they will regret this, because the sad thing is, I've known a lot of players like this. Sometimes players do think you can just replace someone and everything else stays the same. Like I say, I think this will be the craziest impact move ever. Like, essentially, Heroic as we know it is dead, and it's a new Heroic. So maybe that new Heroic can end up being good in some other way, but it isn't going to be like the old one was. Like, that's why in some ways people don't get this. Part of me was critical of the idea Cadian was putting all those roles on his shoulders and trying to make himself the main character, but I did always used to temper it by saying, if he ever pulled it off and actually win the major, I'll have to give him more credit than a normal player. Like, as a result, I really sort of would be like, it was you, mate. You were the guy. Like, because essentially, like, you were sort of gambling on a new way of playing Counter-Strike, that the idea you can be the primary AWPer. And by the way, there's the other thing people always misunderstood about that. He's not just a primary AWPer. He's a real primary AWPer. He's not just when Nitro would AWP an IGL on Liquid, that wasn't true primary AWPing, guys. That was like, find an angle or hold a spot on CT. Like, famously, he just did it on CT side, overpass, etc. Like, that's just because he played fucking long on overpass. Like, it's not really the AWPer. Like, the difference is Cadian was like truly AWPing and IGLing, and sometimes he was doing both at a really good level. Like, that, not only is there no one else who does that, but there's Jame in theory, if you know what I mean, but he isn't joining. Not only is there almost no one does that, but like, you're going to have to come up, like I say, with a new way of playing Counter-Strike, and I don't know what that is for these players, and I don't think they do, quite frankly. How could they? See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.